we'll continue with the same session of master data maintenance. We have seen some of the master data as to how the master data is maintained in the SAP IBP system. So we started off with web UI. We have seen some of the master data maintenance in the web UI. Then we switched over to the Excel interface, and we have seen how the master data in a single term or for a single product can be maintained, followed by a mass level master data. So master data basically is extremely critical, and now we have seen how for a particular parameter, if we select the attribute, let's say product ID, and if we select a particular product number, then we can download, all the related master data for those products. Okay, so we'll continue with similar approach. So before we move on to the further exercise and activity, and we'll do some kind of a practice as well, because at a high level, the processes we have covered, but it needs a lot of practicing and understanding of the master data definitions and terminology. Okay, so some of the ground rules that one need to keep in mind are basically, there are some do's and don'ts with respect to the master data, because you have to be extremely sure when you change, some kind of a master data, because it may have some kind of an implications on other data sets, which you may not even aware of. Okay, so what basically you are allowed to do, or what basically we can do, is we can delete the row that will not change anything. So if you are sure that, if deleting this row will not change any of your records, or if it improves the performance, and if you are quite sure about that, then you can delete the rows in the master data. Because when we download the master data for a particular, for a particular combination, we may see huge number of data sets, and we may feel that, some of these are not urgent or it's not important. Then you have a tendency of, sometimes deleting things which you feel is not necessary, but it may have some implication for, other users or for some other processes. So when you are 100% sure of deleting something will not impact anything, then only you try and delete it. Otherwise, let it be as it is. Don't try and change it. So you can cut in especially in the Excel user interface. It's extremely user friendly, so you can cut paste or copy paste a column from one place to another place. You can copy paste raw data from raw data, or the data in the row from one place to another place. So that's not going to impact anything, like changing the location, or changing the position of the data will not impact anything. You can have, in the way you want it, like you can have first product ID, then customer ID and location ID as one of your combination, or you can have first location ID, then product ID and customer ID. So position of the attributes as well as key figures does not have any impact on your data sources. It's basically the user specific design of the dashboard or of the template that you use. So this does not have any impact, so you can always do that. So you can add the rows at the bottom of your completely downloaded data. That will not impact anything. Like for example, if let's say if you're working on the statistical forecasting model, or if you are working on the supply planning model, so it may happen that sometimes, you have added, let's say, 10 key figures in the edit planning view. Okay, but in actual only 8 planning, or only 8 key figures have popped up, because those were relevant for those selection, and 2 figures did not pop up because it may not have any relevance to the data. Okay, so you may feel that there are only 10 rows here. Okay, and then you try and insert something within these rows, and next time when you refresh this particular data, there is a possibility that, whatever row you have entered manually, it will disappear. So if you want to add a particular row for your specific file, or for your specific, template, you can use, those manual key figures, what I had told you. in the previous sessions. Okay, so we'll touch upon that maybe in this session, because I think this was delivered in the last week, and there were not all the participants present. So we'll try and create the manual key figure, after we get into the do's and don'ts. Okay, so always insert the rows, checking all your data, and then only insert the rows. Otherwise, you have a tendency of losing the information what you have already fed in the system. It's similar to what you experience normally in the VLOOKUP file. Like if you have a VLOOKUP table in the simple Excel spreadsheet, you know, and you have all the filters in the left side, and you filter only few data sets. So you see that the number of rows of the total file are reduced to certain extent. But the moment, and then you add something on the next row, on the last row, okay, or on the row next to the last row. But when you open the filter, you see that the whatever you had entered was overwritten by the pivot table. So this IBP templates also works in the similar fashion. So be very careful when you enter the data, otherwise you will lose it and you will have to do it all over again. Okay, change record keys, for example, product ID, etc., to create new record. Okay, so whenever you want to create a new material number or new product itself, then you have to use product ID. You have to create first the product ID, and then rest of the master data you can create later. So when you are introducing the new product, because as I explained in the past, mostly for most of the data sets, the product ID is a primary key. So it may happen that sometimes you create other master data which are relevant to the product ID, but not create the new product ID for the new material. So in that case, it will always throw the error, because it will search for the primary key, and the primary key is missing in this case. So whenever you want to introduce a new product, make sure that you first create the master data for product ID, database, and then you can go on the other relevant information. Similarly, if you want to create the customer master database for a new customer that you want to introduce, then you first create the customer ID or customer code for that particular customer, then add all the other information, so on and so forth, also for the location and other key important attributes. Okay, so these are basically the do's. Okay, so basically what you can do, and this does not have any impact on the Excel IBP interface. So what you should try and avoid is basically deleting the rows and columns or other mandatory rows and columns. For example, product ID or customer ID columns. So if you delete that in the record, then there may be some issue. When I say delete, you always have the option of selecting or deselecting the record from the planning view. But if you delete the record by pressing the delete key, or if you delete the entire column without following the proper process, then you may lose the information, and system will throw the error. Okay, you should not try and make the changes in the hidden row or hidden columns. Okay, because it will because for a particular reason these particular rows are hidden, because they does not have the data. So in order to have a proper view, system consolidates the data, and it shows those rows or columns which does not have any data are actually hidden inside, and you don't see them. Okay, but if you open them and delete them, then next time when you run the report, you will see that this particular key figure which you have selected is missing. Okay, then also be very careful in modifying the large number of data. Okay, because normally when you try to download the master data and you do not select any particular attribute, you will see that, for example, if you are downloading the product master data, okay, and if you do not select the specific product, then you will see that the entire portfolio of your organization gets popped up in the master data. So it's a huge data, so you have a tendency of getting lost in the data. So in that case, if you try and add something, then there may be an issue that you have edited some other information. So always be very specific while you download the data from the master data template, and try and select only those templates which are absolutely required for you to update. Okay, so when you are also amending or maintaining the master data, you have to be online because system is continuously updating some or the other information. So for example, if you have downloaded the data and then in the meantime you are offline, then while uploading the data, system may show some error because you may have some other missing fields. For example, if there are concurrent users, when I say concurrent users means like two or three users are simultaneously working on the same files, then system does not recognize the file which is in the offline. System will always keep a tab of the files which are online, and they keep on sharing the information with the cloud database. So it's extremely important to be online when you are uploading the data, and select only specific size of the data which you want to modify. Try and first, I mean, you do not have an option but to update the mandatory fields. The fields which are mandatory are normally highlighted with the color, orange color or something like that. Okay, so those fields are mandatory. If you do not enter any data in those fields, system will not upload your data because mandatory fields are important. So at the same time, there are a lot of other fields which are available in the master data. So if you do not know what exactly these fields are meant for, then please do not enter anything over there. You can keep it blank. Okay. So as and when you run the application jobs, for example, you run the heuristic run, or you run the optimizer, or you run the statistical forecasting or inventory module. So any runs you do, you can check the application log. There you will see that what are the errors in the system. Okay. The system will automatically give you an alert for the errors. So just review those errors and then go back to master data and update your master data. And again, rerun the process so that you can check whether whatever master data you have updated, is it correct or not. Okay. So these are the basic high level, do's and don'ts that you need to be aware of when using the master data maintenance. And only if you are authorized and if you are the responsible person for maintaining the master data, please do so. Otherwise, just keep this training as a piece of information for you so that you are aware how the system actually works in the background. Okay. So any specific point or any specific query that you have? Okay, so there was one question related to the pallet number of pallets, right? So I just wanted to ask some information whether this number of pallets to be rounded off, is it required for a particular planning levels, for example, supply planning field, or it's required in the invoicing? Because invoicing totally has a different logic. It's a printing logic on which the invoicing printing takes place. So, and you would have a different logic over here. So I was not very sure when I was trying to work on that. So I thought I'll just ask.
If I look at mostly stock projections, looking for,
Yeah.
and I look at metric tons or kilograms, make it easier, and I see that I have 1,000 kilograms as projected stock for next week. And if I then select the unit of measured pallet, and this particular product is 750 kilograms per pallet, the system will show me 1.2 pallets. And what I need the system to do is to show me 2 pallets, because the second pallet is not complete, but it is 1 pallet in a warehouse anyway.
Okay, so for example, if you are able to see this particular screen, you can see the product ID 400368 and the projected stock, for example, is, let's say, 357. Okay, this, now I go back here and I edit the planning view and key figure. So target unit of measure is CWT, and I move this to PAL, which is pallets. Okay. Then I check here. Okay. So now it's basically 15,464 pallets, something like that. Correct? So now
Yeah,
you see
but
here is 15
if
point.
you exactly, it's point something, and there's no such thing in pallets.
Correct. Okay. So you want your report to be shown as 15465, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So actually you are using one pallet.
This is not a big deal. The only thing that I have to do is I will round it up in Excel. It's not something, I mean, it's not worthwhile to spend loads of hours looking at this. But what I wanted to point it out is that there's no sense at all in having parts of pallets in the warehouse. It's not real.
Okay. So one of the option that you have is, you can, if it is your user specific issue, okay, then you can go here to settings. I will check if, if master data will allow that to round it up. But as a user specific point, you can go here to option. Okay, you go here to the setting. Where is the setting? In about, you have something called option, and then you get this particular dialog, this particular box. Okay, so you click on activate local member key figure. Okay, and then you put, let's say, set as default, click OK. Okay, so now here, let's say you insert the row here, for example. Okay, and then you put, let's stop just it, for example. Okay, then you have entered this, and now here you put is equal to round up bracket open. Select this. I will open this. Okay, you have selected this particular row, and then here if you want to round up, you should put 0. Okay, if you put here 1, then it will have 1 decimal point. If you put 2, you will have 2 decimal point, but you put here 0. Okay, and then you do this. Okay, so now here you see there is a key figure called pallet stock adjusted, and it is rounded up. Okay, and if you save the data, it will save the data because this is only for your specific option. Okay, for your specific report. But if you want this to be changed in the master data, then it will be applicable for everybody. So everyone will see that when it is 15.464, it will show 15465. So do you want this to be changed in the master data, or you want it to be changed in your user specific record? So if it is your user specific record, what I'll do is I will prepare a small process document and email it to you or email it to, and then you can refer it and do it, for your particular report. But it will be only for your specific report because this particular option of local member key figure is only available on your particular login, unless and until you share it with everybody.
I would not do that on the master data because that is a decision that affects loads of people. So I would say that if someone coordinates this and thinks it's the best option, that's fine. If not,
okay. So it's only required for this particular for the planning levels, right? It's not required to be printed on the invoicing or to be printed on some kind of a document, because normally the printing jobs fetch the data from the master data, but it has a separate logic. Okay, so there will be a completely different process if you are facing this issue in your invoicing. For example, if you are invoicing, let's say, a partial quantity to a customer, and then the number of pallets shown on the invoice are incorrect, then this option will not work. Then you have to do the hardcore, you have to write the kind of a script for the invoice printing document. And
this is just basically to see the stock projection, nothing else.
Okay. So you can do that. Okay. So you go here, click on the option, okay, and then click on this local member key figure, and anywhere in this particular spreadsheet you can enter the row and put the formula as round up, then select this cell, and after that comma and put 0. So it will automatically round it to the up, means it will automatically round up to the next level. If you put round down, okay, if you put round off, then if it is 15.49, it will come to 15. The moment it crosses 15.50, it goes to 16. This is round off. So round up means always you want to round it to the next digit. Okay. Just try it out and let me know if it's working. Okay. You can try even during the session, and if you face any issues, we can do it together. Okay.
Well,
And I will.
I have another question on what you were saying before about deleting data and so on. What is going on right now is that the master data is getting bigger and bigger.
Yes.
I can tell you, for example, the customer source is thousands of lines. I was wondering if there is a way of deleting, as opposite to one record at a time, to delete several lines or several records at one go.
Okay, so basically, let's see, you are saying customer source, okay, this particular record. Okay, now here, if I do not select any particular value for the customer source ID, okay, for example, if I want to review one particular customer ID, then I will put the name of the ID of the customer here. So my data is limited. If I do not put anything, then I will get all the list of the customers and their sources. Okay. So now, for example, let's see, I don't put anything here.
Let me give you an example. If you select location ID on the attribute.
On the attribute, okay.
Location ID. And then you select all the locations that start with 81.
81.
You don't have that on test. Let's make it 61, I believe.
Okay. 61. 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4.
What I actually do is I do that for 81 because all locations at Cebu, Portugal, Lisbon start with 81. And what I get of that report is maybe 15,000 lines, which is huge.
Okay, correct. So what do you want to do with those 15,000 lines?
Some of those
want to update.
Some of those products that don't exist anymore, customers that we don't sell to anymore. So what I would like to do is select some of those lines, some of those records, and just delete them all at once.
Okay, so you basically want to do the data cleansing, right? So are you part of the product management group? Because generally the product management group does this kind of an analysis wherein they identify the products which are not being sold. The unwanted data they always want to remove from the system. Okay, so you basically want to have the exception report wherein, for example, if you want, in your exception reports, you want those products which does not have any sales, let's say in the past 5 years, for example, and the associated data for those products, right?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Something like that.
Okay.
Hey, ZaranTech now offers SAP corporate training. That's right. Train your workforce in SAP with our comprehensive program. We offer customized courses, certified trainers, and hands-on labs for both individuals and businesses. Our standout features: bespoke training, fully configured servers for practice, in-house materials, and a dedicated LMS. Plus, get session recordings and 24/7 support. From functional to technical modules, we have got it all. Choose ZaranTech for SAP training and watch your team excel. Learn, upskill, succeed with ZaranTech.
So these all things, see, generally the practice that is used by most of the organization is they take the dump from the system. Okay, so they take the master data dump from the system and then they do the analysis outside the system, and then they will identify the products. Let's say the analysis is done outside the system wherein they identified 50 products which needs to be deleted from the system. Okay, then they download only the data for these 50 products from this particular master data spreadsheets. Okay, by, for example, let's say you have, let's say I will take just one product, okay, the same one which I'm using it quite often. So here, let's say I want to delete all the associated record related to this product. Okay, only related to this product. If you have 50, you may have the 50 products entered here, or I will see if there is any faster way, okay, and I'll try to work that out. And then you click here on the suggested sheets, okay. So you will see that this particular product is associated with all these master data, okay, which is totally 25 worksheets that we have seen in and when you click them, you will see the data for this particular product 400368 somewhere associated with these sheets. So in that case, you need to just delete the data from those sources or from these sheets and upload them again and save the changes so that you get rid of this particular data.
But that means to delete each record one by one.
Yes, in the system. So you want to do it mask level?
Yeah, because when I look at, for instance, when I look at the customer source, if I don't sell, if I'm not using a certain combination, if it's one line, I just delete one line. But if it's 5,000 lines, it's impossible. It's just adding and adding forever.
So if you do not have, if you want to delete this particular material, okay, then you delete this material and everything will automatically get deleted, isn't it?
But it's not a matter of material.
It's not the matter of material.
It's a matter of combination between customer and material, which is the customer source, right?
Yeah. Okay. So currently, how you are doing it? Are you doing it manually?
I'm not doing it because it's thousands of lines and it's simply too much work. What I'm saying is that it's adding every day.
Okay. I fully understood your question. Okay. So let me get back to you on this. I will note it down and I'll try to work out a solution. There is definitely a solution in place in the SAP IBP, and you are basically doing it in the Excel user interface, right?
Yeah, if possible.
Okay. Fair enough. Let's just give a try. It was what you mentioned, customer and product, right?
It's customer source.
Customer source. So if, for example, let's say this particular, I will not delete it. If this particular customer, and if you select here, let's say location with 61, something like this, and the product ID, whatever it is, okay. And if you delete this combination will be deleted from all the master data, right? But it is single level. It is not a mask level. I will check if this can be done at a mask level. So you want the combinations to be deleted from all the master data, right? If you want the customer, location, and product, like this is a combination, okay, and you have, let's say, 100 combinations like this to be deleted, and these 100 combinations would have some linkage to the 10,000 different rows in the database somewhere down the line, right? So by selecting these 100 combinations, you want to delete the 10,000 rows, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I will work on this and I will get back to you with the better solution so that you can have a clean set of data.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Good. Perfect. So any specific question for anyone at this point in time? Okay. So now we try and download the data and try and see what are the some of the meanings of the different product, different attributes of the data.
When we go through this, could you explain the lot sizing?
Lot sizing, yeah. You mean the product lots, production lot sizing?
Production and or transportation.
Okay. Do you have any master data for the lot sizing? Or you call as a batch?
There might now. I see it under the production source header.
Yeah.
And location source.
Production source. So you mentioned the production and the transportation, right?
That's what I would like.
Okay, just give me a minute. Okay, so at a high level, basically, lot sizing is nothing but the size of the product. Okay, the total batch of the product which you want to limit yourself to, and this is basically the key figure which is set for all products, so that every time you, for example, let's say a product 400368, okay, and this is the product that you have defined, and this product is sold in kilograms, for example, okay. So basically, if it is a manufactured product, okay, then the lot sizing would start from your manufacturing batch, okay. So every batch of this product would ideally have a lot size of 5 tons, okay, 5 kilograms or 5,000 kilograms. So you define this in the product master database. Okay. So this is the beginning wherein you have set the batch size or the lot size for this product as 5,000. So this is the starting point. So every time when your manufacturing order gets released, or whenever system runs the batch job for the manufacturing order or for the production plan, it will create the production plan in multiple of 5,000 kgs, 5,000 kilograms. Okay. So this is one point. So at the same time, okay, all your other activities, like for example, if you're for the same product, your warehouse pallet position or the pallet sizing is, let's say, 1,000. So one pallet can accommodate 1,000 kilograms of this product. Okay. So for the same product, in the warehouse management master data, you will have a pallet size of one pallet equal to 1,000 kilograms. Okay. So every manufacturing batch of 5,000 kilograms, you need to have 5 pallets, okay, in the system. And then there is something called as a minimum and maximum batch size. So if you define that, then it's okay. Otherwise, this is basically an optional field. Okay. So similarly, even for this particular product, you will have the transport load. Okay. So for that transport load, you have to have different types of vehicles designed in the system, and that is done in the transportation module system. Okay, so for example, in the transportation module, you define the types of the trucks or types of the vehicles that you use for your road transport. If it is a sea transport, then you generally use the pallets. Okay, and even for the air cargo, you use the pallets. So these are the three different databases wherein you will have different settings. And let's say for the road transport, you will have the pallets defined based on the truck size. So let's say if your truck, a small truck, is worth carrying capacity of 9 metric tons or 9,000 kilograms, then for that particular vehicle, your lot size becomes 9,000 kilograms. Okay. So which is an optimal use of the freight cost. So if you use the optimizer, system will always try to give the requirements in such a way that it uses one full truckload. Otherwise you end up losing the cost. For example, if you run the heuristic, then system will not consider any constraint. Okay, for the same set of example, if your requirement is 12,000, system will consider 12,000 and there is no constraint. But if you run the optimizer, system will say that 12,000 cannot be accommodated. Either it has to be 9,000 or it has to be 18,000. Okay, so something like that. So this is the way the lot sizes are basically defined, and it varies from each master data type. Okay, based on a specific requirement for the specific level of master data. So I'm just trying to search that particular field. So does it answer your question, or you were asking something completely different?
No, that answers my question.
Okay. So if you have any specific example wherein you want me to explain, then you can send me that later and I will try and explain that. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Now, for example, I was just showing what I was telling before. I just selected one particular material, and system has suggested me 25 different spreadsheets of master data, which is linked to product ID, because product ID is the most important field, in the master data setup. But if you see here, there are some of the master data which are completely blank. Okay, even though it may have some or the other implication, but it's not may not be important for your organization at this point in time, or you might not have implemented something for which so that's why it's not impacting you in your regular production. For example, location product. Okay, I have some information here. The location product substitute. Okay, so this is one example. Now this particular master data, as I mentioned, I think I also explained this particular master data talks about the substitute of the product. If this 400368 product is not available, Then if there is a duplicate product or a substitute product which can be offered to the customer, okay, then system will use this particular master data wherein you have to define, the product substitute, like here you will see 40368, and here maybe 44369, something like that. If these products are 100% identical, then because of some reason, if this product is not available, system will consider this product. And in the heuristic run, it will always give maximum priority to this product, okay, because it will not consider any constraint. But in the optimizer, system will say that currently you do not have stocks for this. For example, if your requirement is, let's say, 1000 kilograms, and you only have a stock of 500 of this and a stock of 500 of this, so in the heuristic, system will ask you to produce 500 of this and it will not consider this. While in the optimizer, system will say that you give 500 of this and 500 of this to the customer, okay. So something like that. If your master data or the settings in the heuristic is designed in this way, then heuristic will, or sorry, if it is designed in the optimizer in this way, then optimizer will try and optimize your resources so that you can maximize the profit and you can limit the cost, okay. So what I was trying to say is, in some of the master datas, you will not see any information. It can so happen because this is somewhere down the line not impacting you in the current scenario. However, if you add the master data, then definitely it will enhance your overall efficiency of the supply planning and demand planning process. Okay, now there is this particular field which is called as forecast consumption mode. Okay, and you have not defined anything here. Okay, I was wondering this in the when I was running the demand planning application jobs. I could see that nothing is getting deleted from the forecast, so you have to mention the consumption mode here. For example, there are two types of mode: a forward consumption and backward consumption. Okay, so I'll just try and explain this in this particular sheet. Okay, let's say these are the month: August, September, October, November, and December. Okay, and let's the same forecast. Let's say this is your forecast. This is your customer order file here. Okay, and for example, if you're working on a monthly horizon, okay, I've not considered a weekly horizon. This is August, September, October, November, December, and Jan month. This is your forecast, 1000 each for this product, and this is the customer sales order. Okay, so currently what I observed is, in some cases, when you get the customer order, now this particular forecast is also called as a demand for your month. Okay, because your sales team feels that they will ship this particular, or they will make the sales for 1000 quantity of this particular material. So this is called as a demand means actual customer order. Okay, so and you receive the order for 200, 300, and 2000 in the month of October, so on and so forth. Okay, so now what system should do, ideally in this kind of scenario, you are going to sell maximum of 1000 units or 1000 kilograms for this product in the month of August, out of which you received the order for 200. That means you need to get additional orders only for 800 kgs. So if you have defined your backward consumption, okay, as 30, that means 30 days. These are basically defined in days, and your forward consumption in 30 days. Then what system will do is, okay, system will see that we are currently in the month of August, and there was an unconsumed forecast for the month of July. Okay, I will add here also July. There is a forecast here. So system will reduce this 200 kgs from here. Okay, and system will consider that they have received the order for 200 kgs from this particular forecast. Okay, so for example, if there is a available forecast in the previous period and you have defined backward consumption and 30, so system will first try to reduce the forecast from your previous period. And in other scenario, let's say there is zero forecast available. Whatever you had forecasted, you have sold in the month of July, and there is no balance carry forward for the month of August. This is scenario 2. In this case, this condition first of backward consumption of 30 days does not satisfy the requirement because there is no forecast available in the previous period. The system will go for forward consumption. Forward consumption means system will reduce 200 kgs from here, and then system will say that your revised forecast is 800. Okay, so at any point in time during the month of August, your actual forecast or plus your customer sales order should not exceed this. Okay, currently in some of the examples what I saw, maybe in the test system, I'm not saying that this may be also available in the production system, I see that your forecast is not getting consumed at all. So because of that, if you run the heuristic, for example, you have not given this condition, I will put it in red, you have not given this particular conditions in the master data, then system will consider that you have a forecast of 1000 and you have customer sales order of 1200, so your total requirement becomes 1200. In this case your total requirement becomes 3000 for the month of October, which is not the case, correct? Because this is what was estimated by your commercial team, by your sales team, and when we receive the order, it has to be netted off from the forecast. Otherwise you may end up producing more and this will get into the inventory. So did you understand this concept? That is what this forecast consumption mode is. So if you define, let's say 30 days, then it will first go back in the backward consumption, check the forecast and reduce and adjust the forecast. And if it is not available in the backward consumption, then it will go in the future consumption, because ultimately you are forecasting every month, assuming that, anticipating that some customer orders will come. When the customer order gets in the system, it has to be netted off from the forecast so that your overall demand remains the same. Okay, if it exceeds, then there is no issue, you have excess demand. So in this case, for example, there is no forecast left. Let's say we are in the month of October, so there is no forecast left for September. Okay, so system will consider that 1000 was the forecast, we received order for 2000, so backward consumption is not applicable because there is no balance forecast from September. However, in that case system will consider that this 2000 order, 2000 kilograms of order that we have received is for October and November requirement of the customer. Okay, because it is forward 30. So system will assume that we may not get orders in future, and this may also happen that customer might have given advance orders for 2 months, considering that he does not have to issue a fresh purchase order in the subsequent month. Okay, now assume that this is 3000. Okay, but you have given forward consumption as 30. So system will only consider October and November because it's 30 days. It cannot go beyond 30 days. Okay. Then system will consider against the 2000, we have received the order for 3000. That means 1000 excess demand. So system will give a plan to produce 1000 excess. It will not go to December and reduce this forecast. This is how the forecast consumption mode actually works. Okay, so it's of course depends on the organization to organization. I don't know what sort of business model you work on. If it is a made to stock and you are okay to keep high or excess inventory, then there is no issue. But if you want to optimize and you want to produce only as per the forecast, then for forward and backward consumption mode you have to define in the system after having a detailed level of discussion with your commercial team, so that you do not end up producing high inventory. Okay, so did you understand this concept or any doubt?
Within the IBP table, you said there's 2 modes we can choose. So
Yeah.
is that maintained? That's maintained in SAP though, correct? Like the amount of days you want to keep or consume?
Yes, you have to maintain the days, okay, and it will keep on rolling. If you are working on the weekly horizon, you can maintain it in the weeks as well, okay, but generally it is maintained in the days because this is this is the lowest horizon that is normally used by the organization. Okay, so for example, if you are on 1st of September and if you maintain it, let's say for 30 days, then from 1st September it will calculate 30 days and it will be either 1st of October or 30th of September. Okay, if it is 30th of September, then system will not reduce the forecast. Okay, but the next day system will start reducing the forecast from subsequent month.
Okay.
Okay, so this will help to reduce the inventory, but of course it depends on the business model, because I do not have full visibility of what sort of business model you are operating upon. So I'm just giving you the basic information as to how actually organization work in the either in the make to order or make to stock scenario. So this basically works more for the made to stock scenario, wherein you keep the stocks in your warehouse and waiting for the order. So it's kind of a push strategy. So you always have stocks with you. You are waiting for the order. So the moment you get the order, you push your stocks to the customer. Okay, so this is push strategy. For make to order, okay, you wait for your production. You don't start the production in advance. You only start the production when you get actual customer orders, because your products are specifically designed for customer. So unless customer places the order, you are not going to start your production. So I think being in this particular industry, okay, being in the sugar industry, you could be in the made to stocks. You must be producing ahead of time, keeping them in the stock, waiting for the order. Once the order is received, then push the stock. Correct? Yeah. So moving on to some other parameters like late delivery, fair share cost policy. So this basically talks about some parameter, or some penalty that you can put in, which may only for the critical customers. Okay. So this will help for the priority purpose. For example, if you put the late delivery charges, let's say $1, $2 per kg or whatever it is, then system will always consider this as the top priority, because in the optimizer run, of course, in the heuristic run, system will not consider any constraint. So, but in the optimizer run, yes, system does consider that, this particular customer, if it is a critical customer, and if you have put the late delivery charges or late delivery or fair share, these are two different things. Okay. So it may not be late delivery is there is also another database data wherein you can put the late delivery charges. But what it means is basically you assign some value towards a penalty cost. Okay. And this may be a hypothetical value. It may not be a real value as such, but just because you want to prioritize this particular customer over any other customer, because this is your critical customer, either he's paying you a premium price, he's paying you a higher price, or because of some other technological advancement, or because of any other reason you feel this particular customer is a strategic customer and you have to take care of this customer, then you add the late delivery charges as some dollar value to it. And system in the optimizer run, it will always give the first priority to this customer, and you will see that your service levels are automatically improved. Okay. So minimum, the next one is the market segment, which you may be aware. This is basically the segment for the market in which the product is served. Okay. So whatever is the market segment, it can be defined in this particular field. Minimum shelf life value of consensus demand. Okay. The shelf life value, basically, this is not used very regularly. Okay. Because it talks about, till what period your consensus forecast is valid. So it's kind of a time period for which your consensus forecast is valid, and then after that it will delete that particular forecast. So for example, if you put the value of your consensus forecast shelf life as 1 week, and after 1 week the previous week's forecast gets deleted, and it has no meaning, because system will consider that the time period for the validity of the forecast consensus forecast is expired. So system will not plan anymore for that. It will allocate the plan which was done for that particular material in the previous week. So it will allocate that to some other material, some other requirement in the subsequent weeks. Okay, so similar to late delivery, there is also non-delivery charges. Okay, there is a trade-off between the two. So for example, if you have put late delivery charges, let's say, and you have to also define how many weeks or per week late delivery charges. So if you define, let's say, a late delivery charges of $10 per week, okay, vis-a-vis non-delivery charges of, let's say, $100 per week. Okay. And then if there is a trade-off which has to be defined by the optimizer, then optimizer in the worst case, okay, first it will try to make sure that the products are delivered as per the requirement of the customer and they are not late at all. But for example, you are missing the raw material, okay, so there is no way that you can produce on time, and system knows that there is no raw material. So in that case, system has another option whether to delay this particular product by a couple of weeks or not to deliver it at all. So it will check the penalty cost, okay, of not delivering. Penalty cost is $100 and late delivery will cost you only $20. Then system will try and accommodate this plan 2 weeks later, okay, and this will give you the information that, okay, if not in week 1, at least customer is getting the product in week 3, okay. So this is one particular scenario. Now in the worst case scenario, your vendor has not given you any feedback, okay, or there is huge shortage of the material in the market, so for next 10 weeks or for next 3 months you're not going to get the material. So in that case, your non-delivery charges is $100 and your late delivery charges comes to almost $150 per kg. Okay. So in that case, system will have to decommit this particular order. Optimizer will say that you do not have any option but then to pay the non-delivery charges of $100 to the customer and say, sorry, I cannot make it. So these are the kind of decisions or kind of feedbacks that you get from the optimizer, provided your database or master data is fairly accurate, at least for the critical customers. So since you are in the process of starting off the optimizer, it's a better, the chances of success are high if you start off with a small pilot lot for a critical product for critical customers, monitor it thoroughly, and then extend it to a wider range of product. Okay. So we any questions, guys? If you have any questions, don't hesitate to stop me. You can stop me anytime, and I'll go back and try and address your question. Okay. So delivery is quite clear. There are no specific technical fields that I need to discuss or explain to you. It's version, delivery order, delivery item, customer, location, product, actual goods movement date, sold to party, base unit of measure, so on and so forth. Okay. So some of the points related to the location product, ADU calculation for future. Does anyone know what is ADU? No idea. ADU is basically average daily usage. So if you know the abbreviation, it becomes self-explanatory that average daily usage calculation for future horizon. Okay. So here system will tell you what sort of average you have to use for identifying your future requirement. Okay. So if you put it as 7 days, then system will put 7 days of average of future requirement that you need to factor in the current production plan. Okay. So for example, if you have a scenario wherein you put ADU calculation for future horizon as 7 days, okay, then system will in the week 1, if we are, let's say, in current week system will also plan for the requirement for the next week, okay, if you set the planning parameters accordingly. Similarly, ADU calculation for past horizon gives you the past average data, and this can be used for defining the safety stocks, because based on your historical sales, if you want to have a dynamic safety stocks, then you can use ADU calculation for future or ADU calculation for past to define your safety stocks. For example, if you put your safety stocks as 3 weeks of your ADU calculation, okay, then system will consider at any point in time, system will consider the next 3 weeks of requirement, customer demand or consensus demand, whatever it is. It will consider 3 weeks of average demand and it will put it as a safety stocks, and it will generate the plan based on that requirement. Okay, is this clear?
So do you usually only use future or past? So one or the other?
Ideally, yes. Usually, you use future or the past, either of the two. So generally, if you are if you want to have a forward-looking safety stocks, because if, for example, Your customers pretty steady, okay, and they are giving you the forecast for future in the past, or in other words, your statistical forecast accuracy or your sales forecast accuracy is better. Okay, you have a good amount of accuracy for your future forecast, then you go for the future horizon, because it will consider future forecast and make sure that you have adequate stocks in place, okay, rather than the past horizon, because past sales history sometimes may be misleading. If you have some plans in future, your sales team would know and your customer would know. So it's always better to have a futuristic approach than the tendency of looking at the historical data. Okay, and coefficient of variation horizon. Okay, so CV is basically used for mostly for the statistical forecasting model. Okay, so you have to define a value between 0 to 1. Okay, so if it is exceeding zero point 0.5, it is 0.7, 0.8, then it gives more weightage to the historical data. Okay, if it is less than, let's say if your CV is 0.1, 0.2, or 0.3, then it will give more weightage to the close data, like near data, like let's say last couple of months. If you define your CV as zero point 0.8, then it will give more weightage to the data of, let's say, 6-7 months before. Okay, so this is how the variation CV basically is used, coefficient of variation. So in your live system, do you use all these things? Is it updated, or you have no idea about it?
No, I don't believe we use these.
Okay. DDMRP, I think we have seen it's demand-driven materials requirement planning. So DDMRP basically defines that, your MRP is giving more weightage to the actual customer demand, actual customer orders. Okay. And the moment you get customer order, immediately MRP will factor in, the requirements and ask of or create the production plan. So DDMRP basically uses this kind of scenario. DDMRP analytics period basically talks about some kind of a formula which is defined in the key figure, which will do the kind of historical data analysis and consider that for your future planning. Okay, so you have to define the periods, like what sort of periods you want to take into consideration for calculating the demand. Additional order spike horizon. Okay, so here you can define what is the additional order that you can consider within the horizon. Okay, so you have to define, first of all, what is the horizon in which you can consider the spike order. So, for example, if you have an agreement or an understanding or a process with your manufacturing that you have 1 month of frozen window. Okay, so do you know what is called frozen window? So this is basically the window wherein supply chain or planners are not allowed to change the production plan, because generally manufacturing or production organization, they always have the thought process, or they always try to have the process in place wherein they do not want to change anything in their production. So they want to have a fixed production plan for a certain period. And mostly this certain period is 1 month of horizon. So for example, if we are, let's say, on 31st of August, so manufacturing would always insist you that you give me a frozen plan for the entire month of September. And it's better that you don't change anything in the plan in between, so that they can use their resources properly, they can optimize their resources, they can control the cost. So these are basically the objectives from manufacturing organizations, to have the less number of changes in the plan, so that they can meet their KPIs and KRAs and so on and so forth. But in actual, in the current market scenario, market is extremely dynamic, and market does not really care about this kind of frozen window. So whenever we receive the customer orders, the supply chain organization will try and push the manufacturing team to accommodate some demand in the frozen window. And this leads to the impact on the cost proposition for the manufacturing organization. Okay, that's the reason you have to define this horizon in which you can accept the order. So if it is 1 month horizon, and if you keep it as a frozen window, then within that particular horizon you cannot take any new order. Even if you get the order in the system, you can enter the order, but system will give the delivery date for that customer outside, horizon, something like that. Okay, any question? No? So this is lot size indicator. We, I think, discussed about the lot sizes, DDMRP lot size. Okay, so this particular MRP lot size, it talks about demand driven MRP lot size indicator. Okay, so for example, you do not have any specific minimum order quantity for your customer. Okay, for example, you have not defined it, then customer is free to place any order from any quantity that he may need for his requirement. So he will place the order for, let's say, 1000 kilograms or 2000 kilograms, let's say 2000 kilograms, he placed the order. Okay, but if you define your DDMRP lot size as 5000 kilograms, because unless and until you have the batch size of 5000 kilogram, you cannot go to production and tell them that you start the machine for producing 2000 kilograms of this product. It may not be viable for them, and they will say that if I produced only the batch of 2000 kilogram, I will end up spending more cost towards the manufacturing resources, towards the fixed costs, so on and so forth. So if you have defined the batch size or the lot size as 5000 kilograms, then in spite of having the order only for 2000 kilogram, your DDMRP lot size will be considered into picture, and system will give the production plan for 5000 kilograms. Okay, so in this case, the 1000 kilograms remains in your stock and 2000 kilograms goes to the customer. So for 3000 kilograms, you have to wait for another customer order to be fulfilled, but you optimize the cost. So it's basically a trade-off between inventory carrying cost, okay, the cost of carrying 3000 units in your warehouse, let's say, for example, 1 month time, vis-a-vis the cost of producing 2000. Okay.
What sets ZaranTech apart in SAP corporate training? It's our unique blend of expertise and innovation. We offer customized courses tailored to each client's needs, ensuring relevant, targeted learning. Our vast trainer database brings you wisdom from the best in the field. Need resources? Access our extensive training material repository anytime. We are all about measurable results, providing detailed student metrics to track progress. And we don't just teach, we build community. Join our thriving social media network, connecting learners beyond boundaries. With ZaranTech, you are not just training, you are transforming your SAP expertise.
So this also can be configured in the optimizer. Okay. So if, for example, if you say that your generally batch size is 5000, and the associated per kg cost for the batch of 5000 is, let's say, $5,000, or let's say $5 per kg. So it's $25,000 for producing a batch of 2000, for producing a batch of 5000 kgs. Okay, and the associated cost for producing a batch of 2000 kgs is, let's say, $10 per kg. So it goes to 20,000. Okay, so in 20,000 cost, you can produce only 2000 kilogram versus 5000 kilograms in $25,000. Okay, so it's always better to produce a more quantity. Okay, now this is one aspect. Another aspect is, if you keep 3000 units in your warehouse, you end up spending $30,000 for 1 month. Okay, so in this case, your $30,000, that is warehouse spend, is higher, okay, than cost of producing 2000 kgs. Okay, so in that case, you will only produce 2000 kilograms, and you will spend $10 per kg, that is 20,000, but you end up saving 1000 kilograms. Of course, this is not considering the profits and other stuff, because you have to look at the entire P&L to do the simulation for such kind of scenarios. But I'm just giving you a very high level thought process on how optimizer can be made useful to get into all these benefits. So are you guys with me? Are you following what I'm saying, or is it confusing? You want me to go a little slow, something like that? So any specific feedback, or we go in the same way?
Quickly, the question I had was,
yeah,
we have a situation coming up where one of our customers is discontinuing all their SKUs, and there's new ingredients, so we are going to have to set up new bombs and new SKUs. It's the same product, but I'm going to have to set up all of them with a new SKU number. So for that, how do you make a SKU obsolete? And then for setting up the new SKU, are you following the master data setup chronologically?
No, in that case, you can simply go and copy. If it is an identical product, okay, you can simply copy it. For example, 1:1. But if it is a master,
I think the labels are changing. Everything else is the same, but the labels for those cans will be changing. It's a new name, a new graphics on the label, but the ingredients are the same.
Okay, but the product name is changing or it is same?
Some of them might change as well. The name might change as well.
Okay, so if the product name is changing, then you can use this master data wherein you can, select the product ID. Okay, and then try and copy, the product ID. For example, this is the one. Here you can add. Okay, you can copy. So this is the product, existing product. And let's say you have another product 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, something like this. Okay, so your product A will become obsolete and it will get replaced by product B, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then all these attributes can get copied, okay, for the base version. If you want to do it for the other scenarios in the simulation tab, you can do that as well. Okay, but this is related to the product. Okay, similarly for other attributes, for example, customer will remain same, right? So in your case, only the product is getting changed. Then you have to go into the BOM. Okay, now in this case, it will copy the same BOM which is available for this particular product and it will move it to this particular product. So if the labels are changing, then you have to go in this BOM for this particular material and change the BOM. Okay, so this is two-way step. Rest everything will be captured automatically by the system.
That was very clear. Thank you. So you just went to master data.
Yes.
Manage
master data. Yes.
Manage master data, and then you went.
Yeah. To try and do it first in the test system, and then if it's working fine, then you can copy it in the live system. No issues.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Any other question? Anybody? I see that you have some green zone calculation type indicator and then CO2 equivalent. I think this is related to some greenfield project, something like that, carbon emission, something like that. These are the specific parameters that was, I think, designed for your organization, which are not very common. Distribution type G or N. Any idea what is this G or N? Is it something related to carbon emission, something like that?
I don't.
Okay. Similarly, you also have inventory holding fair share cost policy. Okay. So here you can define, as I mentioned, in the example, what is your inventory holding cost and what is the policy that you want to adopt or adapt. So basically that needs to be factored in your master data so that your optimizer can take care of that. So all these conditions, are taken care by optimizer. Okay, so if you set it right, then I think you will get fantastic results, and slowly you will start, improving your efficiency, and you will see that your organization is really making the value for the activities that you are doing. But it has to be done properly, and you need to have proper resources in place. Yeah, the subject matter expert or the BPO or the key users who actually can take the lead in driving all these operations in your organization. So inventory target violation cost also you can mention, if you define the inventory norms, because inventory norms are directly proportional to your service level. So for a particular set of customer, okay, when you do ABC XYZ analysis, you will find that for product level, for product A class, you will automatically get good amount of service level, okay, by design. Okay. Similarly, if you do the ABC XYZ analysis for your customers, you will see that the customers who are extremely loyal to you, who place orders only with you, okay, every month, and they have a good amount of share of business with you, then they are become class A customer. So these customers will have certain inventory policies that you tend to keep some stocks for these customer at any point in time, so that whenever they place order, this can be immediately delivered to them, and you get a good amount of customer satisfaction as well as good amount of OTIP. So in that case, you can define the inventory target violation so that the system knows that if the inventory policy is violated for any reason, then you may have to pay some amount of penalty, either in the way of less OTIF or in the way of paying some penalties to the customer, something like that. Lot sizing procedure mentioned as one. When it is one, it is 100%. So 100% of this customer can be serviced from this particular product. Okay, for example, this location 1001 and product 400368. So if this customer has order for 500 and if this stock has 500 units in it, then 100% of this order can be serviced from this customer, because you have mentioned lot size as 1. If it is 0.5, then if you have even the full quantity of material available, system will only allocate 50% of that based on your master data, because there may be some associated factors behind it, in not allowing you to ship the entire quantity. It may be the distance. For example, if your product one, if your location 1001 is pretty far from your production or from your customer, okay, versus 1002, then system will obviously give the preference to 1002, because the lead time from dispatching from 1002 to customer is, let's say, 1 day, and lead time for dispatching from 1001 to customer is, let's say, 3 days. Then system will give the preference to 1002, sorry, based on the lead time. Maximum internal service level. Okay, so service level is nothing but the OTIF that you want to target. Okay, so internal service level is internal OTIF. Okay, and external service level is OTIF to the customer. So you can have your internal targets. Okay, for example, your internal customer is your warehouse, is your like, for example, for a plant. If you have a plant, let's say, I am not sure, if you have a plant, let's say 1001 is your plant, a manufacturing plant, then from that plant, for that plant, your DC, let's say OKDC is your distributor, for example, distribution center, not distributor, a distribution center. Then OKDC is customer, internal customer for this particular plant. Okay, so you need to define the service level for your internal customers, like, even though they're part of your organization, then OKDC as an internal customer, and if you define a service level of 95%, then your optimizer will consider that 95% of the time OKDC gets the material from plant 1001 on time, at least to the extent of 95%. It will make an attempt. It will generate the plan considering that 95% of the OTIF, internal OTIF, is met. However, in reality, situation may not be exactly going in the same way as system thinks, because there are a lot of dynamic factors, there are a lot of outside conditions and external atmosphere which is impacting the day-to-day activities. Maximum internal service level, minimum internal service level. So you can define both. Maximum can be 95, 98, whatever it is. Minimum can be 70. The system will always try to stay between the two levels, between the threshold, so that it satisfies both the parameters. These are shelf life values which I just explained. MOQ is minimum order quantity. Okay, so if you define the minimum order quantity, and if it is for this location for this product, okay, so for example, this is the combination for which you define the MOQ as 1000. Then unless and until the demand from location 1001 goes till 1000, system will not plan it. Okay, or in other words, even if the demand is 500 and if it is a critical customer, then system will still plan 1000 units of production, because MOQ, or the minimum order quantity, is 1000. Okay, where is MOQ? MRP type indicator. Okay, this is the MRP type, material requirement planning, whether it is finished goods, it is raw mat, it's it's packaging material, or it's sub-assemblies, something like that. Network ID, periods between replenishment. Okay, so basically, for example, after receiving the order, you have, if your manufacturing time, cycle time is, let's say, 1 week. Okay, so after receiving your order, your replenishment cycle time becomes at least 1 week. Okay, so But in practical, after receiving the order, the planner will review the order, he will freeze the order, then he will place the requirement for raw materials and packaging material to be transferred from warehouse to the manufacturing location. And all this activity takes 1 week of time. Then your replenishment lead time, average replenishment lead time should be 2 weeks time. So after receiving order, considering all the activities that needs to be done by planner, by the production, within 2 weeks time, you should have, the replenishment done, because system will then consider 2 weeks of lead time and it will give the plan accordingly. And at the end of the cycle, system will compare the actual results and give you the KPI measurement whether we are on track or no. Safety stocks, you must be already aware. Safety stocks, there are different ways by which you can define the safety stock. Okay, so it can be in the weeks of inventory, it can be the quantity directly entered in the system. Okay, and I'm not sure if safety stocks is an editable field in the master data. If it is an editable field in the master data, you can enter the safety stocks manually. Planner has the authority to enter it manually. If it is non-editable field, then you may have to have the reference of some other stock, like you can have the target stock as the field, which can define your safety stock. So if your safety stocks is non-editable, then you can enter the requirement in the target stock, and system will automatically consider that, in order to have this much amount of target stock as your ending inventory for a period, what is the safety stock that is required. So system will automatically calculate, the safety stocks based on the target stock figure.
Excuse me, before we move on, I would have a question about the safety stocks, please.
Yeah.
So the current process I've got in place is that we calculate the safety stocks in the UK based on the key figure called target input days, when we ultimately put a number of days cover we want to have, and the IBP calculates required stock based on the forward sales forecast. So for example, if the sales forecast is 1,000 tons a week, and we put 14 days, then the safety stock is 2,000 metric tons. My question is there an option in IBP to maintain that the way it is now, but on top of that put some additional safety stock? So what I'm aiming at is that I want to have 2 weeks safety stock the way it's calculated now, but on top of that, let me say that I would like to have further 500 metric tons every week, which would be a fixed number, regardless of the forward forecast.
Okay, yes, you can definitely have that. Okay. So I will try and add safety stocks an editable field. I don't think so. This is non-editable. So currently you enter.
I'm not sure. I don't use it at the moment, so it's difficult to answer that.
Okay, so you enter the target stock, right?
Yes.
Okay. Where is the target stock?
It's going to be called target subperiods. Yes, target subperiods of supply. It's the fourth from the bottom.
Huh?
Yes, and Marcin, that should be similar to the one that you use.
Yes, I believe so. Yes, the name is different, but only that's probably because we use different planning platforms.
Let's see. Okay, so now this is 14 days, correct? So for example, in the current scenario, it will consider 14 days from here and then define, the safety stocks, correct? So what do you want? You want this to be more?
Yes. So ultimately, following this example, if we're looking at 14 days, then I would assume that the safety stock would be 1768 plus 1770. So that gives you 3535. And I would like to have an ability to slap on it an additional volume. So if the sales forecast was to change, and instead of reading 1,700, it becomes 1,000, then obviously your 14 days becomes 2,000 instead of 3,500. That's perfectly fine. But regardless of that, I would always would like to have additional 500 metric tons, regardless of the changes to the forward demand.
Okay, but you want it user specific, right? You want it only for certain periods to be
yes,
changed.
Correct. Yes, certain. Yes, certain. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm after. Yes.
Okay, let's try and run. Let's see. I will run the heuristic first. I think there is a tab called target stocks, which you can manually edit. And if you enter the target stocks manually, then it gets automatically calculated to the safety stocks level, because here the safety stocks key figure is non-editable. Okay, let's see. Demand, is it? Do you use this safety stocks adjusted figures or this one safety stocks adjusted SOP? Did you try to use this?
No, I'm not entirely sure if they're available in my planning area, but I can check it.
Because normally the ADJ ones, there you can have the possibility of adjusting it manually. Okay, so let's say for this particular field, your 350 current field it will allow in the current period, but yeah, so you can put it manually in the, just try and use this figure, okay, safety stocks adjusted, you put it manually here and try and run the heuristic. You are running the heuristic, right, currently?
Yeah.
Not the optimizer.
Okay. Gloria, would you have an idea how this key figure may be called in the UK? Because I don't have that available to me.
I can check that. For UK, you use the same planning area?
No, different. That's the whole problem.
Okay, wait.
I
What
can try
is
to
your...
look, Marston.
Sorry?
I can look it up.
You said
Perfect,
something to
thanks.
me?
No, should we just check what's my equivalent for the UK? Obviously, we don't want to be holding this up. Holding up this call for everyone else. I mean, the option is there. I'm pretty sure it's available in the UK. It must just have slightly different name.
So do one thing, the one with ADJ, okay, that is the adjustable figure. So you can always put manually and run the heuristic and your problem will be solved.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for your help. Yeah.
Yeah. But wherever you
Excellent.
want to change it, because if you put adjusted numbers, system will consider that. It will give preference to that number because there is a manual intervention there. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. So any specific questions? Any other questions? Okay. See, there are still a lot of these definitions which are yet to be covered. So I will try and, in the background, what I'll do is I'll try and work out the specific ones which are little difficult to understand, which really requires some kind of a logic. And I'll try to share the documents to you somewhere next week. I'll share it with, and then maybe she can share it with other users. So after that, if you face any problems or any doubts, you can always reach out to me. That's not a challenge at all. And I also checked on the point which Vaibhav has raised related to the LMS access. Yes, you will have the LMS access, so you can view those documents or you can view the recordings. Okay. So any specific question so far?
No other questions from me.
Okay, see, the projected stock has increased the moment you change the safety stock. So it should work. If it is working in test system, it should definitely work in the production system as well. But I'm not sure about UK. What are the settings that you are using, whether it is identical one or the different one? Okay. So if there are no questions,
question about the safety stock field is: are you entering the hundredweight volume there, or order unit?
No, it is basically defined whatever I enter here. Okay, so it depends on the unit of measure that is assigned to this particular screen.
Okay.
Okay, so this is quantity. This is not weeks. Okay, because this particular key figure that you have entered in weeks, but this is quantity.
Oh, I was referring to the master data table.
You're talking about the master data table?
Yeah.
Yeah, which one you are asking? Sorry.
Keep scroll over. Safety stock.
In this screen?
Yeah, I think it was over here.
Yeah, in the master data, yes, it depends on the location.
Column AR.
Column which one? AR?
Yes, correct.
Oh, what is your question?
So here you don't enter in volume here, right? If you use this, do you use this, or are you just going to be using the plain template to enter that?
Yeah, see, this particular master data is for a location and product. Okay, so for this location, for this product, you have to define the safety stocks in quantity for this particular spreadsheet. Okay. Yeah, and whenever you see, the target cover or the safety stocks in days. Okay. If those are the definition, then you have to put it in days. So this is target sub periods of supply. So because it's talking about periods of supply, that means it will consider these periods. How many periods? That is total 14 days of supply. Okay. And when it is talk about projected stock, this is projected stock in terms of quantity. Okay. Adjusted stock, that is in quantity. It's like that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay. So we would have the session, right, for the supply optimizer?
Yes.
Okay. So did you try and run something for your own set of data?
No, I'm not sure what you mean.
Okay, you have not tried. Okay. So if there are no more questions, then we can close the session now. But please, you can always count on me if you have any doubts, any queries. We can be accessible. That's not a challenge. Okay, thank you very much.